I'd like to introduce Tim Johnson. He's from the UK and he resides in Spain. Tim is a father, a husband, and a successful businessman. Tim started a YouTube channel here 3 years ago to share his experience with recovery, strength, and hope in addiction to drugs and alcohol. Thank you for joining us, Tim.
Thank you for having me, Roberta. It's lovely to be here. Thank you.
I'm so glad you're here, and I really appreciate you staying up late to make this video. We're on a pretty good time difference here. So I'm in Seattle, Washington, and Tim's in Spain. Do you want to say what part of Spain?
Yeah, I'm in Andalusia on the Costa del Sol, in a little village just outside a town called Madena, which is very pretty. I live halfway up a mountain, looking out to sea. So it is a very nice place to live.
That's wonderful.
And very hot at the moment.
That's great. What's the temperature?
33 centigrade today. It was even in late September. So dying for a bit of rain, to be honest with you.
So it's starting summertime there.
No, it's autumn, but it's like unseasonably hot. It's a bit like the crazy weather all over the world at the moment, but it's really hot here.
It's better than being hot in most places. So
yeah,
Spain's a beautiful place.
It is.
So Tim, please tell us a little bit about your childhood and about the first time you experienced a psychoactive substance.
Yeah, I was born in Liverpool, England, in 1960 on the 29th of February, which was a leap year. So I only have a birthday every 4 years. So that was a great start. So I only had a real birthday every 4 years. But the family life wasn't brilliant, to be honest with you. My father was absent and actually quite a cruel man. And although we didn't realize at the time, there was a lot of trouble going on in the relationship with my mother, and there's a bit of violence and a lot of trouble. And we were quite frightened as children, me and my brother. My brother's 3 years younger than me. And my father actually just disappeared when I was 4 years old. One day he was there and the next day he wasn't. And it turned out later on, we found out he'd found another woman and disappeared with her. I never saw him again for the rest of my life. So basically, he recently died, I found out, in his late 80s. And he never tried to contact us, never saw him again. And unfortunately, my mother disintegrated. She turned to alcohol and to tranquilizer, Librium, a benzodiazepine at the time. And she was absent from most of me and my brother's childhood, in a sort of semi-coma state most of the time. And we brought ourselves up really as children. But she never stopped loving my father. I forgave my mother eventually, or have forgiven my mother eventually. I blamed her for a lot of things, but it destroyed that breaking of that relationship. Even though he was a cruel man and he treated her really badly, she never stopped loving him. But as children, we were at a bit of a disadvantage because we brought ourselves up and we didn't have a lot of money and we wore second-hand clothes, bullied at school. It was not a brilliant childhood, to be honest with you. It left me with a few scars, which I carried with me into my adult life, unfortunately. But I sort of pulled myself through school and managed to get some qualifications, even though I was told by many people that I wouldn't get any. I managed to get enough to get me through to college, and did a degree in hotel and catering management, restaurant management. And it was during that time, even then, although I look back on it, there was times when I first touched alcohol, which was probably 16 or 17 when I really had a bad time with it. But even then I couldn't stop. I would start to drink, and I was always the last one to leave a party. I was always the one that was carried out in a semi-coma state, always the one that tried to prove himself with other people by drinking more and taking more and trying things that other people weren't prepared to do. And I remember going to a Thin Lizzy concert in Liverpool and stealing a bottle of Pernod and having it underneath my seat. This is my first memory of losing control with alcohol. I was 17 and drank the whole bottle in stages, and passed out in the middle of the concert and was arrested and ended up in a prison cell at 17 years old in Cheapside in Liverpool, which, believe me, in those days, they just used to beat you up and steal what you had and kick you out the next day. So it wasn't very pleasant. But that was the first time I had a real issues with it. And then during my college days, I smoked a lot of weed, to be honest with you, a lot of cannabis, and but no pills or nothing heavy at that stage. It was more alcohol and smoking drugs, to be honest with you. So that's a bit about my childhood. There's quite a bit more, but without going into so much, detail. But
so when you first started drinking like that, what were the positive effects for you? It sounds like you had a lot of negative, but did you have any positive? I mean, what kept you going back?
What kept me going back was that I had, even in those days, I had very low self-worth and low confidence. But I found, even this was going back into my school days, I found that if I made people laugh and was the one that was always did the dangerous things in situations that got me into a lot of trouble, then I was accepted into a group. It was a bad group, trust me. It was a group, the bad boys, if you like. It was an all-boys school. And I found that alcohol and smoking weed gave me the confidence to do those things and tricked my brain into think I was being accepted and that I was braver than I was. And that was positive for me because in my mind, it was increasing my self-worth and confidence and made me accepted by a group for the first time. Because in my young childhood, I was a very lonely child. I was just bullied and not accepted by people. So to be accepted, I had to be the most dangerous and the most drunken and the most stupid. And I look back at a lot of my problems in later life, and I think that obviously that's where they arise from, certainly the self-worth issues. Yeah. But yeah, it did have positive effects. I'm not going to lie. It made me feel good. Yeah. And it made me feel confident in the life and soul of the parts, even though I was being a dick, yeah. Basically. Yeah. In my mind, it was good because people were welcoming me into the group. So. Yeah,
more all just accepted, and that's what we want for kids. Yeah, I can totally relate with that. You and I probably would have been friends in high school.
Probably would have caused a lot of problems, Roberta, you and me.
the bad boy and bad girl club.
At the back of the class.
Exactly. Yep. Tim, you share a lot of your details of your life on your channel, and I will put your link to that video in the description so you all can follow. But I want to fast forward to the summer of love when you noticed that things started to get really out of control for you, and that was like the late 80s. Is that right?
Yeah. I started off my career in hotels and restaurants, and it really wasn't doing anything for me, although I went back to it in later life. I wasn't really enjoying it, and an opportunity arose, and don't ask me why I applied for it, but an opportunity arose in a nightclub. I lived in Cambridge at the time, in the south of England, and it was a really good nightclub, and an opportunity arose for a job as head of security. And for some reason, I was quite a big chap then. I used to do a lot of lift a lot of weights and do a lot of stuff like that. And I thought, I'm going to give this a crack. It sounds a lot more exciting than what I was doing at the time. And anyway, I got the job, and I found that I had an aptitude, and it was probably the thing I've done best in my life was running nightclubs. And I very quickly progressed through the security into food and beverage and assistant management, and then got a promotion into the Midlands, Birmingham, to a brand new nightclub as general manager. And it had a lot of live music and stuff, and I was caught up in all of that, but I was actually, I had an aptitude for it, and it was a very busy place. It had a 5,000 capacity, and it was a bit like, it was the time of when Manchester was rising, and the Hacienda nightclub was, and there was bands around that were growing up, like the Stone Roses and the Happy Mondays and the Manchester, they called it. And prior to that, we'd had a lot of bands playing at the club, like electro bands like Erasure and like the Bronski Beats and Blancmange and Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, all English bands. But we also had bands, American bands like Odyssey, Shalimar, Sheck Attack, So it was all very glamorous. And to cut a long story short, I got caught up in that and thought I was perhaps a bit of a gangster. I was making a lot of money, and in those days it was a bit like the Wild West. It was not there was no control on security staff, and drugs came in through the club, and I had to be okayed by me. And I'm not proud of any of this. I'm not glamorizing it, or I'm proud of it, but I got caught up in all of that, and my door team, we were selling products basically. But it was Manchester time, and the Summer of Love came in '88, and the problems arose. I was taking a lot of cocaine at the time. I discovered cocaine, which is what we were selling in the club, a lot of it, and it wasn't cut like it is. It was proper good stuff, like, you know. And of course, because I was in charge, I wasn't paying for it, so it very quickly escalated for me. And this is when the first issues arose with me with drugs. I was single. I didn't have any responsibilities. I had all the money I could spend. Everything was going brilliantly in the clubs. I was meeting a lot of glamorous people, and I had drugs on tap basically. And then of course ecstasy arrived. The Summer of Love '88 and '88, '89 and '90. We had the Happy Mondays played at our club, and it was carnage, and ecstasy was had arrived, and most people had stopped drinking alcohol and were taking ecstasy, and acid house music had come in and raves had come in, and we were getting involved in all of that. And we were organising stuff and organising raves and organising stuff that was going into those raves. And of course, I was involved heavily in all of that, and everything got a bit out of control for me at that stage. Yeah. Unfortunately, I met my wife she was a customer in one of the nightclubs I ran, and it all went to shit basically, as it always does when you escalate like that. And she pulled me out of it. I fell in love with her basically, and the love for her was stronger than my love for all that life. So very reluctantly, I came out and got away from all that. And this was, I suppose, '93 probably when I came out, and we settled down, and then went to run pubs and restaurants together very successfully, and everything settled down for a few years.
Yeah.
And I was clean, and I started to run marathons. I ran the London Marathon. I ran the New York Marathon, and all for charity. And it was another addiction. When I look back on it, another addiction really. It was because it caused me a lot of pain. I'm not built to be a runner. I'm 6'1" and I'm heavy built, so I'm like I'm not a natural. But I ended up running about 6 marathons and many Great North runs, all for charity, during that early mid '90s period, and everything was going swimmingly. And we'd had 2 children, 2 beautiful girls, and then that was the time I discovered opiates, basically, sort of mid '90s.
Yeah.
So that's when
6'1".
Sorry?
It's 6'1". You know, you don't look like you would be 6'1". I don't know why, and it's so hard to see what people really, imagine.
Size-wise, yeah, I'm 6'1". Yeah.
Well,
I don't know what I weigh now, but I think I was at the height of my addictions, I was about 280 pounds.
Okay.
Now I'm about 196.
Wow!
So,
congratulations.
Yeah, so about right for me.
Yeah, it seems like you were going pretty hard, and then your wife came in and she kind of put the lockdown on you a little bit, and you probably really appreciated her for that and just kind of slowed down. And what I'm guessing, I don't know about you, but I know in my past with addiction, with opiates, I started out drinking, but then when I found opiates, I realized that I had so much, or I thought at the time that I had so much more control. I wasn't blacking out when I started taking opiates. I had this energy, this profound energy where I can work. I was lovable. I was likable and all these things, versus when a sloppy drunk. And so when I found opiates, I don't know if the same way for you, I felt like it was a solution to my drinking problem.
Absolutely, yeah. My drinking had really dropped down, because alcohol's always been a problem all my life. But during that mid-90s, I was 35, 35, 36. My alcohol, and I'd been doing the running, and my alcohol had dropped right down. And then it was stupid, really, because I hurt my back. And it was due to the running and exercising I was doing. I ended up going to the doctors, and she prescribed codeine for me. And I'd honestly never take. I think I'd had an operation early in the 90s on a stomach hernia, and I think I'd had morphine as a painkiller after that operation. But prior to, I didn't know what opiates. Never had the effect of opiates before. So I'd had this codeine, and I always remember it. And it was a day I really rue the day really I took, and discovered that they gave me a feeling that alcohol and no other drug could ever give me. It was like being wrapped in cotton wool. It's like having a virtual hug from something. It was. I felt safe, secure. I felt confident. I felt energized. Pain had gone. And that wasn't just physical pain, that was emotional pain had gone. And obviously, I discovered that if I took more, the more effects that it had. And it very quickly, for me, at that point in my life, escalated, where I was visiting the doctor. And I was we managed a business in the area, and the doctor knew me, used to come in the business and use the restaurant. So I had a really good relationship with this doctor. So he prescribed perhaps when he shouldn't have, and it escalated from codeine, and it moved up in quantity till eventually it got to morphine sulfate tablets. And I was popping these morphine sulfate tablets like they were Smarties, like they were sweets eventually. And it kept getting stronger and stronger. And I had fentanyl as well. Before all these problems with fentanyl, I was using fentanyl patches. And anyhow, it just went to shit, basically. Sort of by the year 2000, I reached 40. I was in a bit of a mess with opiates. I was taking them, to survive every day. It escalated and got a bit out of control. And then I stopped. I managed to stop. And I had a sort of couple of 3 years where it didn't go too badly. And then I think I had what everyone describes as the midlife crisis, I suppose.
Yeah.
I thought I lost my mojo, my sense of purpose. What am I doing? What am I achieving? My girls were, I think, at the time 12 and 10, or maybe a bit older. Everything that we'd put them through a good school, everything was going well. It was too easy.
Yeah.
And that sounds stupid, I know, but everything seemed, what's the point? I just felt, and I was searching for something inside of myself, which was there, but I couldn't find it. I was trying to get it, and I was buying shit, and I was buying jewelry, and I was buying cars and clothes, and we went on a nice holiday, and nothing made me happy. So I started taking pills again. I was buying them in pharmacy. I was taking large quantities, because by this time the doctor had got wise to me and was so I was buying stuff illegally, and I was also buying from pharmacies low dose codeine and paracetamol tablets, Nurofen Plus, and I was taking them in quantities. It had escalated to the point where it would probably kill a normal human being, what I was taking, but my tolerance levels had raised to such an extent that and it was destroying everything, because as most addicts, they think that no one knows, like they think that no one's noticing, but everyone was noticing. My family life was suffering, the girls were suffering, my wife was suffering, And then it got to the point where she tried to stop me by taking my cards and money off me, and I had to go, you know, because she was desperate to try and stop me. And I was stealing money. I was stealing. It was appalling what I was doing. So when I look back on it now, you know, there's no point in regrets and shame, as I'll come on to a bit later. But I look back at the person I was then, and I don't recognize him at all. But that's where, you know yourself, that's where addiction takes you to some dark places. I remember stealing off my grandmother once, and I loved her more than any other woman that, more, you know, she brought us up really, because my mother was absent. She helped us, and I stole off her. I never forgive myself for that. And then it got to 2006, and I was given an ultimatum. My job, I was almost losing my job and everything. I was drinking as well and using so much. And I was smoking heroin at this stage, trying to get legally and smoking it. And that was the first time I really sought proper help. So that was in 2006.
Okay.
And I ended up in residential rehab. Oh. So that was for.
Was that your choice? How did you feel when you went to rehab? Was it your choice, or was your family kind of pushing you in that direction?
It was an intervention, as well as it was my choice, in as much as I was desperate for help at that stage.
Wow.
And the job that my wife was carrying the business, I'd been shoved into the kitchen, cooking, chefing, basically, because I couldn't be out front anymore. It was too dangerous to me, because we would have just lost our job. We worked as a couple, you know, and that was our livelihood. We lived on the premises as well. And the money was good, you know, it was keeping our kids in school. Everything depended on it. Yeah. There was that, and the fact that I almost had a crash in the car with the children when I was under the influence. There was many things that sort of led up to it, and they stepped in as well. And my mother, even then, my mother had sort of straightened herself out a bit by this time. And she stepped in, and my nana stepped in, and they paid for it, actually. Wow. And I went to the Perry Clayman Clinic in Luton, which is near London. And I was in there for 3 months, residential, 12-step rehab. Wow. And it was real spit and sawdust stuff, so bad. It wasn't, not like these rehabs that you see on the telly with swimming pools and massages. Believe me, it was
hardcore.
It's shit and sawdust, as I call it.
Yeah.
But I made a lot of very close and good friends there, and it did me. It broke a cycle. Let's put it that way. At the time. So.
How long did that last?
Well, I came out of rehab, and I was doing the. I've spoken to you. I know I've spoken to you about this before, but I have a lot of time for AA and NA and CA, and this rehab was a 12-step rehab.
Okay.
And I had to go to the 90 meetings in 90 days during that rehab, and I was very much doing the program. And as I say, I have a lot of time for the 12 steps, and it's not what I do now, but I still use some of the elements from the 12 steps, and I think that for a lot of people, they do work, and I'm very open-minded. Whatever works for you is for me, that's great. As long as it works, I don't care what it is or how it works, but what it is. And if you get a good sponsor, then that works well as well, you know. But what it didn't do for me, and what I didn't address at the time, I didn't address the past pain, and that drove me into wanting to use, all the problems that drove me into wanting to escape my reality. Yeah. I didn't address it in rehab. I thought I'd addressed them. I did an inventory. I did all of that, and I spilled my guts. But I didn't address the resentments. I didn't address the pain. I didn't address the forgiveness that I needed to forgive myself and forgive the people that I perceived had wronged me. Yeah. I didn't address any of that. And that, if you get a good sponsor that can take you through that, that's brilliant. I never had that. And consequently, I came out of rehab, and I was clean for about 6 to 8, possibly 8 months, I think it was. And I was attending meetings, and I was doing the program. But then in my mind, it became almost like another addiction to me. I've heard that. And I felt that if I wasn't doing my inventory every day, and if I wasn't addressing these issues every day, I found a different way of doing that now, another way around it, if you like. but I just fell by the wayside. It was just driving me crazy.
Yeah.
And also, I was still extremely unhappy. It hadn't addressed any of those issues which I needed to address, you know, and I hadn't discovered that happiness was inside of me, simply inside of me.
Yeah.
Where everybody that's watching this and everybody that I know will find it inside of themselves. I don't care who you are or what's happened to you, it's there. You've just got to find a way of tapping into it, and it's not easy and it's hard work. But I didn't do it at that point, unfortunately. I wish I had, because you know, the worst was yet to come, if you like.
Right.
So
ask you, what kind of attempts did you make to try to gain back your control? Like, so you got out of rehab and then you relapsed, and then, well, you stayed clean for about 8-9 months, right? And then you relapsed again.
Yeah.
And then you went on another tangent, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that in between then and now you've made other attempts. What kind of other did you try after AA?
During that period of time, I relapsed really badly after that 8 months of sobriety, after the rehab.
Yeah.
And it went on for I managed to I hid it for a bit, actually. I was quite successful in hiding. I wasn't drinking, but I was using over-the-counter opiates initially.
Okay.
And but the money, I was having to get money again. That's where it always crumbles, you know. And I was I couldn't explain myself, and it was making me sick as well, because they do make you sick because they've got ibuprofen in it, or I don't know what it is in America though.
Ibuprofen, Tylenol.
Tylenol, that's it. It's
got
the ones I was taking was codeine and Tylenol. So then I started seeking out heavier drugs again, illegally, and so it escalated. And then I thought, well, I'm going to try and do something about this myself. I was getting out of control, and it was all going down the pan again. So I decided to come out. My job wasn't making me happy anymore. So I talked to my wife about it, and I decided to go back to college and do a degree in acupuncture, which is a massive tangent, which was a 3-year degree.
That's a big deal.
In traditional acupuncture. And this was around about, at this stage, about 2008. So at that point, I also decided that I needed some help. So I accessed the community drugs team locally. We were living in Coventry, which is in the Midlands at this time. And they were very good. So they gave me, and it was free of charge. There was no charge attached to it, free prescription. They prescribed me initially Subutex.
Oh, okay.
But then because Suboxone was quite new then to the community drugs team, so we're only just starting to prescribe it.
And what
so
was
then
the community
drugs team, CDT, community drugs team.
Okay.
Community drugs team, yeah. It was like each local council has in the UK, or should have. Some don't, but most of them have a community drugs team where you go and register. They have doctors on site, and needle exchange if you're an IV user. Yeah. CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, counselling, and then they prescribe obviously methadone or Subutex. But then I switched to Suboxone.
Okay.
And I was doing Suboxone over the whole period I was doing my degree in acupuncture. So it maintained me for that period of time. And then that all went great. Everything was going great. And I'll never know the reasons why, but I was starting to feel really unhappy again. And it got to about 2012 and everything had escalated again. I was a mess. And my wife said to me, the family called me together, my girls. By this time, my girls were, Samantha was, it's 12, let's see, she was 19, 12, 24, 23 years old, Samantha was. And Rachel, my other daughter, was 21. So they said to me that they gave me one last chance. They said, you get clean yourself, we'll go to a doctor's, get clean. But if you relapse again, then we're going to have to, break. My wife said, we're going to have to separate. We're going to have to call it a day. And so I had a terrible, with another withdrawal. I've lost count of how many withdrawals, but I had another withdrawal, which was awful. And I was helped through it by my doctor, by my daughters, by my wife, and fantastic support. Couldn't wish for more. Got clean, totally, no alcohol, no drugs. 2012, and she gave me a job. By this time, I wasn't employed she was a single manageress by this time. I couldn't be trusted to go back into it again. You know, we'd made a lot of success and a lot of money together and all the rest of it, but I couldn't be trusted to go back in as a manager again. So she gave me a job as a chef in the kitchen. And for 8 months, 9 months, brilliant. I was, you know, it was all going good. I was exercising. I was doing all the right things. And then for some, I'll never really understand why, but addiction's a cunning monster, isn't it?
Yeah,
for some reason, I came down one morning and I was doing breakfast. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. There was no one around. I was cooking breakfast for the hotel guests, and I was alone in the bar. And I remember it so vividly. It was a horrible feeling. I was almost like I was physically dragged to the wine fridge, and I stole two. I don't even know why I did it. I stole 2 bottles of wine, and I drank them. 2 bottles of wine, and obviously, being clean for 8 months, everyone noticed, and that was the end. Without going into all the details, it was awful, and we separated, and I ended up living on my own for 2 years in a little house, doing any job I could get my hands on, security work, illegal work, whatever I could do for 2 years. It was awful, but we stayed in touch, but at a distance. And then everything conspired for me to buy this with my family. I got an inheritance, my pension came up, everything conspired for this, and this property arrived in Spain. Yeah. And we sort of came together as a family because my girls were worried about me. I was quite sick. Then I was living on my own, and I was drinking heavily, and I was using heavily opiates, whatever I could get my hands on. And they thought that if we bought this place and I came to move to Spain, that it would be a new start for me, basically, and that an idyllic place to live, which it is, in the sunshine, Mediterranean, retired with a pension. Couldn't want for more, really, you know. And so it all came to pass, and I came out here, and I don't know, it was lonely, man. It was lonely, you know. And I discovered Tramadol. This is where the thing really gets out of hand, and I discovered for the final time, thank God. But I discovered a drug called Tramadol, which you'll know over there perhaps as Ultram. Yeah. And it goes under another, I think, Ultrax as well, but Ultram mostly, and Tramadol.
Yeah, we call it Tramadol here too.
Yeah. And in England, it's prescribed for moderate to severe pain. It's a synthetic opioid with an antidepressant quality into, which I didn't know about that at the time.
Yeah, I didn't. You told me that. No, I didn't know about that either. That's incredible.
It has the same makeup. The Tramadol, it has the same makeup as an SSRI chemically. So it does a dual role. Not only is it as an opioid analgesic effect, it has an antidepressant SSRI, serotonin reuptake inhibitor effect. So people don't realize that when you take Tramadol, you get an absolute rush of euphoria and energy and happiness and all the opiate stuff, but with an extra kick, if you like. And it reshapes your brain. It's a horrific drug. And over here in Spain, unfortunately, it's legal to buy over the counter. So you can buy 20 tablets for €2.50, which is, you know better than me what that is in dollars, but it's
$4, 50 cents here, maybe around that.
Yeah, so cheap to buy.
Wow.
And I very quickly escalated to over the 2 years to taking between 50 and 60 of those tablets a day, every day. And that sounds ridiculous, I know, but that didn't happen overnight. That built up and built up and built up. That was where it finally took me, and my tolerance level. And literally, that was just keeping me well. That amount of tablets was just keeping me well, and my drinking had escalated. I was drinking chronically vodka.
Well, you were abusing the tramadol, and like you said, this tramadol is also an SSRI. So when you're taking 20 to 40 pills of those a day, you're getting this, I mean, your poor brain.
Yeah, it fried it. Because when you and I've got a video on my channel that's in detail about tramadol withdrawal and what you actually go through without going into all the, but it's you get like horrific, as well as all the opiates, things you would normally expect from a severe opiate withdrawal. You get horrific anxiety and depression on top of, the normal anxiety and depression you get with opiate withdrawals, nothing on what you get with tramadol withdrawal, and brain zaps, hallucinations. And it lasts a lot longer. There's a period of time you get pause, obviously, with tramadol, with opiates and stuff. But with tramadol, the anxiety and depression seems to just, obviously, your brain is healing from two sort of different angles, if you like. It's healing from the opiate receptors are trying to heal, and also you're trying to get serotonin started in your guts again. Your guts are all wrong, and it's a horrific drug. And there's not enough knowledge about tramadol. It's prescribed in England. It's prescribed willy-nilly, and obviously the drug companies say it's not easy to get addicted to. It's probably the easiest drug in my whole life that I have become addicted to.
Yeah, I have a lot of my subscribers that are from overseas addicted to tramadol, and I always wondered why, because I've taken it in the past, and I think because of that SSRI effect, which I had no idea, somehow I didn't like it. Gosh, and then on top of that, you were drinking, so you were coming off the tramadol and the alcohol at the same time. You must have been miserable, Tim.
Yeah, that was it was the 2 years those 2 years I was dying. That's the only way I can put it. It was a final sort of curtain, if you like. I in my mind, I didn't leave. The only time I left my bedroom, and this is a beautiful place to live. I wish it was daylight and I'd turn it around and show you, but it's dark at the moment. But I never left the apartment only to buy drugs and alcohol. So I never ate anything decent. I was eating shit because I couldn't. I spent all my money was being spent on drugs and alcohol. So I was literally just eating crisps. And my body was, by this stage, was rebelling so much that just to wake up in the morning and stop the shaking, I had to drink half a pint of vodka and take pills. That was just to stop the shaking and be normal.
Yeah.
And it escalated to the point I'd never been, and I was vomiting blood every day.
What year was that, Tim?
This was so 6 years ago, 5 years ago. Okay. This was when it really escalated to that level. Well, we're now 2014, 15, around about that sort of time.
So you were actually vomiting blood.
Yeah, wow. It wasn't. It was horrible. Every day, when you reach that level of abuse, your body is constantly rebelling. I had real bad gastric reflux every day. That was so painful. I couldn't swallow. It was I just didn't want to. Subconsciously, I was committing suicide slowly. I just felt as though I'd let everyone down, let myself down. I'd come here for a new start, and I'd pissed it up against the wall, if you like. And I was angry with myself. I was severely, obviously, depressed because of what I was taking, not eating properly, and so on and so on. Grossly overweight, 280 pounds. Ashamed of myself. Never showered, never washed, never shaved, never had my hair cut. Dirty clothes. And it was a disgrace. I got to the Christmas, I was in such a bad way that when my daughters and wife saw me, they stopped me going anywhere near the kitchen. I couldn't stop because I'd slowed my pills and alcohol right down just to go home, because I couldn't obviously take those quantities when I was back there. So I was sort of withdrawing at the same time, if you like. And so my daughter had dragged me into, I always remember it, dragged me into a room separately. Both my daughters, my oldest, this was initially, and was hysterical, in tears. And because no one else would broach the subject, but my oldest daughter is very honest and a very forthright young lady, thank God, and very sensible. And she said to me, and I'll never forget, I'll never forget the words she said, but she said she was in a relationship at that time, and she was engaged. And she said, I want you to give me away, Dad. I want you to give me away at the altar, and I want you to know my child, your grandchild, and I want her or him to be proud of you. I don't want you to die. And it was very tearful, and it was hysterical. And I came back to Spain with all good intentions, but even that wasn't strong enough. Just my family pleading with me, my daughters pleading with me, the tears. This is how strong it is. This is how strong you have to be to stop. But it had started the process in my mind, and this was now 2016 now.
Yeah.
And over those 4 or 5 months, that process had started, and I started to subconsciously look at stuff on YouTube. And I was looking at addiction channels. I discovered Ryan Donnelly, obviously. God rest his soul. I really miss him. Yeah. And he was a massive part, as you were, Roberta, and are a massive part of my recovery, inspiration, knowledge, and experience, and picking up from other people's experiences. And I was looking at other people as well, other other mentors, if you like, for guidance subconsciously, but still hadn't stopped. Still, I was taking the same amounts.
Yeah. So the seeds were pretty much planted, and you were turning to YouTube like a lot of people. And I know you know this because you have a channel, and that's how I started. My seeds were planted by watching other people in YouTube. Who are your mentors in recovery that you found on YouTube?
Affirm you, if you like, while we get to this point, because you've been a really big part of my recovery. I'm not just saying this because we're on.
Yeah.
But I've never had a chance to tell you face to face before. But you're a massive inspiration, and your honesty and experience has been a big part of my recovery, as it is for a lot of people that watch your channel. So that's you.
Appreciate your support, Tim. I really
No, it's a pleasure, and I took a lot of guidance from your channel as well, like, for setting up my own at a later date.
Well, you've guided me along the way too. You've seen you've seen my ups and downs on YouTube. You've seen
but that's honesty. That's what it's all about, being honest and sharing those ups and downs, because we're all human, aren't we? And we're not perfect. And I always say that I'm perfectly imperfect, and that suits me, and that makes me happy with myself, but my other mentors, Ryan Donnelly, of course, was I would say probably the largest inspiration when it comes to certainly my drug addiction and all of that sort of thing. As far as alcohol addiction, I've got another mentor, Kevin O'Hara, who has a channel called Alcohol Mastery. Okay. Who's an Irish gentleman. He lives in Spain as well. I've never met him, but his channel's big.
To write that
down. He's very good, and he speaks very forthrightly, and he's been sober for about 9 years, I think.
Okay.
So he's a good channel. And I have other mentors, such as I learn from people like Russell Brand. I learned from the late Dr. Wayne Dyer, is a massive inspiration. I'm a great follower. I'm not a religious person, but I believe I follow the Tao Te Ching, which is a philosophy based in nature and the universe. I believe there's something, but I'm not stuck into any religion. But the Tao Te Ching has been a massive inspiration for me. Eckhart Tolle has been an inspiration. Lewis Howes and the School of Greatness, and also probably massively who taught me about getting rid of past pain and forgiveness, Dr. Gabor Mate, who is he's a hero of mine, and I read his books and I listen to a lot of his stuff. He is inspirational, clever man who hits the nail on the head when he says that all addiction is based in pain of some sort, whether past, present, current, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. There is pain somewhere in addiction that you need to address, and that's his philosophy.
I love his approach. And he's such a gentle man. Gabor Mate. You guys, I will also put a link to Gabor Mate's channel in the description box. because he's a great guy to follow if you're if you're looking at
Yeah.
recovery, or if you're in recovery. It helps you
Yeah.
understand like where it all comes from, the root of it. And
That's very
yeah.
good. Yeah, but I think recovery is all about being absolutely open-minded. And Dr. Wayne Dyer had a saying, be open to everything and attached to nothing. And that saying sticks with me because my mind is open to, I don't just stop at all those mentors. I look for mentors in day-to-day life and people's examples, and just kindness and love and giving back.
So are there any exciting events coming up on your channel, Tim?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I'm talking to the CG Kid next week on his channel about Tramadol. That's literally just a video on Tramadol about the drug itself, about what it does to you, what it does to your brain, how to come off it, my experiences with it. So that's quite exciting. 4 things that are really important to me that really changed my life at this time. I think that these 4 things are essential. The first one is really important because this is what stopped me. Your desire to live has to be stronger than your desire to die. And that sounds really extreme. But when you're in a situation with addiction, and we talk about rock bottoms, rock bottom can mean different. People's rock bottoms are different. Everyone's rock bottom is different. For someone, rock bottom can mean the breakup of a relationship, or losing of a job, or the losing of a home, or whatever, a death in the family. That could be someone's rock bottom. For someone else, particularly those of us who have severe addiction issues, it can be a matter of life and death. And whatever stage you're at in addiction, your desire to live and to experience life has to be stronger than the one to die, because that was where it'll always take you. When it takes everything else, it'll come back for you. Yeah. That's where it always ends. So that's one that's quite serious, obviously, but that's what pulled me through this time and the face of my children. The second one is to learn to live in what I call, it's one motto of my channel is Carpe Diem, which is seize the day, seize every moment. But I always say, learn to live in easy accordance with fate. And what I mean by that is that life is like when you get into a heart monitor and it goes up and down and up and down. Life can be high, it can be shit, it can be low, up and down like that. But if it's flat like that, it can't be, because that means you're dead. And that's the only way it'll be flat. You'll die, you're finished. So life will always have massive highs, massive lows, and that's life. There's nothing you can do about it. You have to learn to let go of control. The only 2 things you can control are your thoughts and your actions. That's all you can control in life. Everything else that's around you is temporary. You can't control it, and you have to learn to let go of it. Just like the trees let go of the leaves at autumn, you have to let them go. And to learn to live in that easy accordance with fate, to accept everything that comes with you, to you, and go with the flow of life. And that takes a lot of learning, because it's shit sometimes. And but there's nothing you can do. You can either, I've got a thing up there and it says, life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. And that's my philosophy in life. And it's really important that. And the third is find a purpose. So everyone needs a purpose. To live life without purpose, and the simplest purpose of all is giving service to other people and giving back. And it's one of the things in AA and CA and NA and life in general is giving back and passing on experience. To volunteer and give service to someone, and let however small it is, whether it's a smile, a handshake, to be kind to someone, to lift someone's shopping up, to open a door for them, to go and volunteer in a rehab, to go into a homeless shelter, then that's giving back, and that's purpose. And find a purpose which is positive. And finally, and which is what's the thing that linked to my channel, the foundation of recovery, the base of recovery is diet and exercise. I'll say this a million times. An old saying about food is to eat your food like medicine, or you'll end up eating your medicine like food. And that's so true.
So true.
Diet is the foundation of mood, of energy. It will combat depression, illness, sickness, and everything is based in diet. And when I changed mine radically and cut out all the shit, my whole life changed. It was the basis of my healing, getting rid of pause and all that was dragging on. And exercise is the single panacea to mental health issues. It will help your mental health every single time, whether it's a 10-minute walk in the fresh air in the sunlight or a 2-hour workout in the gym with weights, whatever floats your boat. But exercise and movement and stretching is the base of all, of all that's good, and it will help you with your mental health, your physical health, your weight, your self-esteem, your self-worth, everything. That's my preaching done. And that link to my channel is this is not a vanity thing or anything else, but I made a challenge to myself that my 60th birthday is the 29th of February this year, next year coming, which is a leap year. Yep. So it's a real birthday. I'm 15 years old in real birthday terms because I'm a leap year baby.
Hey, congratulations on that.
And I've said that I'm going to get, without personal trainers, I've not got much money, I've not got a fancy gym, I don't pay to go to a gym, I have weights, I have a good diet, and I have my mental strength, that I will get a 6-pack at 60. Yeah. And I will unveil it on my channel on my 60th birthday, and that's not for vanity reasons, it's to prove that whatever age you are, whatever your situation, whatever you've done to your body, mind, there's a way back for you. There is a healing. There is hope, always hope. And providing you have the self-discipline, the desire, the want, if you like, you can achieve anything, absolutely anything. And that's what I call the champion's mindset, if you like. And and gratitude every day. Write 3 things you're grateful for every day on a piece of paper, first thing when you wake up. And I can promise you it will reprogram your brain.
Yeah, gratitude is definitely changing my life for sure. Gratitude is huge. And the diet thing, you're so right when it comes to that. I mean, you don't realize it until you start getting older, but like the food is just, it's paramount. Those are great tips on helping. I'm just so happy that you're here with me today, and I'm happy that you survived that, Tim. Thank you so much.
I'll just say one final thing. My relationship now is very good with my family. My wife visits me regularly here. We're the best of friends after 34 years of marriage. We're still married, and we'll remain married as far as I know, unless she meets a tall, dark, handsome stranger, but who knows. And good luck to her. But my children, my relationship with my girls has never been better. I gave my daughter away to her wedding a year or so ago. It was a year last April, and I was proud and sober and looked good, and she was proud of me. She wrote me a beautiful letter at the end of it, and I was very proud that day of her and the way I was at my best for her. And she had 4 months ago a granddaughter. Yeah. And who's been is called Imri Rose, and she visited me here. I obviously went over to England when she was first born, spent some time with her. She came over here a week or so ago and spent 10 days here, and we built up a little relationship together. She's beautiful, gorgeous, and I wouldn't have had any of that, or any of those things, if I hadn't have made that decision on August the 21st, 2016. None of that would have happened because I'd have been dead. So
yeah, you would have died the way you were going. And I mean, I'm just so grateful that you're alive, all that you went through. I mean, you're so lucky to be here, Tim.
Yeah, and I thank God for that every day. Well, I thank the universe for that every day. I think whatever's up there, I thank every day. The first thing I do when I wake up is smile and say thank you. And that's a habit I've got into now.
Yeah, isn't the gratitude practice so powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's neuroplasticity. It reprograms the brain and it creates new pathways. And they reckon that 30 days of gratitude will reprogram your brain with positivity.
Yeah,
so,
and it does. I've been doing a gratitude every morning for the last year and a half, and it's changed my life.
Yeah.
So
no, it's fantastic. It's the way forward, definitely. The final thing I will say, because I know I've talked a lot, is always every day just do your best. This is really important. And every day your best might be different. But you can't have any regrets if you just do your best. So whatever you're doing and whatever you're aiming at, whether it's trying to become sober, or whether it's your diet or your exercise or whatever it is, you just do your best. But that best today might be different from the best you give tomorrow. That doesn't matter, as long as you know it's your best, because that means that you can't ever look backwards and say and have no regrets or self-loathing, because you can only do your best. That's all you can do, isn't it? So,
yeah, and it's always, like you said, it's always going to be different. One day you might not have as much energy one day as you're going to have the next, but as long as you put your heart and soul into everything and really try your best, it makes a huge difference. It's great advice. And I'm just so blessed to have you here today. I really look up to you. You're a mature gentleman who has figured it out. And a lot of people that go as hard as you did, they die before that happens.
Before they can. And a lot of people die. A lot of people die in their 20s, and it's through, particularly with fentanyl as it is at the moment, and a lot of synthetic drugs which are causing. In Spain now we have major issues with synthetic drugs, with fentanyl, and with drugs like spice and what they call monkey dust. Yeah. And it's just going to get worse. I'm seeing carnage over here amongst young people, and I volunteer in a rehab and in a homeless drug shelter. But yeah, every day we see devastation here. And you think a country like, you have this vision of rural Spain like as being, but we're quite close to Malaga here, and there's some major issues, and a lot of drugs, because it comes across from Morocco and from Africa. A lot of drugs come across into Gibraltar and around that area. So it's a big problem here. So yeah,
I'm so glad you volunteered like that. Thank you for doing that for our society. I really appreciate it.
It's good for me. It's not selfish motive, it's the wrong word, but it helps me a lot. It gives me purpose, but it also, it means that a lot of their last years, although they've been carnage, they've not been wasted, because I think that pain teaches us a lot of lessons, doesn't it? So, and if you learn from those lessons, you can pass them on to other people and perhaps prevent some major pain in their lives, and that makes everything worthwhile, which is why I started the channel. And that was 6 months after I got sober, I started the channel. So there's a lot of water under the bridge since then, but I learn every day. I still learn now. I know as you do, you learn. Yeah. You learn every day, don't you?
You've changed so much through it, because I was going back to your first videos. You've lost a ton of weight. You've gained a lot of muscle. You're all bright-eyed. You look fantastic. So thank you so much for coming on today, Tim.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Is there anything else that you want to add?
No, I think we covered, like I say, on my channel, there's I still do quite a bit of stuff on addiction now, but I also try and do a lot of stuff on self-help, mental self-help, and physical diet, exercise as well, and try and mix it up a bit. My email's on the channel. If anyone wants me to cover a subject or has got any questions for me, I always answer all my emails and the comments. I always answer comments. So
I will put your channel in the description box for everybody to check out. And yeah, Tim has a variety of subjects on his channel. He's got sugar addiction. He talks about breathing techniques, Wim Hof, addiction, a plethora of topics. So please go check him out. And also he's going to be on CG Kids channel here pretty soon, talking about his Tramadol addiction and withdrawal process. And I will go ahead and link CG's Kids channel in the description box as well. And we will be looking forward to that 66-pack video series coming up here pretty soon.
I'll have to get 10.
Okay. Thank you so much, Tim.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure, Roberta. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it.